A $10,000 reward announced today in the search for a young man who vanished in broad daylight after walking away from the scene of a car crash. This is a case we've covered as part of our Missing series here on NewsNation Prime. Tommy Howe disappeared back on January 22nd, just north of Chicago. After a collision on the interstate, witnesses say he pulled over to the median, got out of his car, and headed for a nearby forest preserve.
A search of the vehicle showed airbag deployment. However, no direct indications of physical trauma were present. Yet, we have no evidence to rule out that Tommy wasn't injured.
Tommy's parents say their son was planning to meet family for lunch that day, and when he didn't show, they traced his cell phone to a suburban tow yard where they found Tommy's wrecked car, but no sign of their son.
Tommy, if you see this, and if you are confused, please know and remember how deep our love and care is for you and the strong bond that our family has. Please call us if you can.
His parents say Tommy was in no way a threat to himself or to others. However, they think he suffered a head injury in the accident and may have been disoriented. Dr. Chad Domingue joins us now. So that's the working theory, doctor, that he hit his head and was disoriented. What do you think of that?
It's a tough one. You know, when you talk about concussions, what we're talking about, you're talking about the equivalency of dropping your computer and watching it flash because the circuitry has been damaged or bruised. Concussion is no different than when you hit a muscle and you see the bruise, the brain is trying to get oriented. The thing with a concussion, though, you wouldn't imagine someone would get out, walk away, you know, be able to navigate those type of things. Those people usually look kind of drunk. They have disorientation, you know, so this story doesn't add with a concussion. What came to mind when I heard this story was late onset schizophrenia. So schizophrenia can take place in your 20s. And when I was reading the story about him being a little more reclusive during the pandemic, this certainly could have been the first sign of schizophrenia taking place, delusions, disorientation. And then the other one that came to mind was a dissociative disorder, so multiple personality disorder. Not common immediately after a trauma. Usually it's childhood abuse, those type of things later on in life. But for someone to be this amnestic and to move away where police force, dogs, everybody can't find them, they got to have a high level of cortical function to be navigating, you know, landscape, snow, and all those type of things.
So I guess, can you, if you suffer trauma like this, is it possible that you would essentially be unaware of your surroundings or what you're doing as you started to wander off toward a forest preserve?
Yeah, but, you know, I think we've all experienced some trauma in our life, whether it's a car accident, whether it's you know, football, whatever, and we don't remember those events very well. So you have what's called a retrograde amnesia, just like that whole event never happened. But once you come to, you kind of start getting your senses and you kind of realize your environment and you start to realize who you are, what you're doing, you know, slowly and slowly. Right. And that's what makes this story so unusual, is that he never regains that level of cognitive awareness, but he still remains conscious and have high level functioning where he's walking, he's navigating things. And that's where I'm struggling to kind of put the two together.
Well, that's the other thing. It was heartbreaking to me, doctor, to hear the parents say, you know, hey, if you're confused, know that we love you. But I'm struggling with trying to figure out how long, if you are disoriented as a result of trauma, and it isn't some of these other things you think might be at play here, how long would that last typically? Is it something like, you know, maybe an hour later you would sort of come to? And what's the difference between that and being unconscious, I guess?
Well, if you look at the medical literature, and I do a lot of work with patients with head trauma. I work with the NFL during their lawsuit. I do some ringside doctor work in my spare time. But when you look at that level of head trauma, we've all seen heavy knockouts, people get unconscious during football. You know, you see them wake up, you see them wobbly a little bit, but then they come to. So even if he had a traumatic brain injury where, you know, really cracked his head on the steering wheel, you would imagine at some point he would come to. I mean, there are really rare cases where people damage certain parts of their brain that allow this type of stuff, allow them to have consciousness but not memory. But you're talking about 1 in, 100 million to have that fine of a brain injury to lead to this kind of discrepancy that you and I are discussing.
Wow.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.